there's just so many layers to the different things that I've been learning over the years that I just keep adding to. I'm a nerd, so I love to learn new things. I love to share that information, and so I'm grateful that Erin and I are friends and that she'll call me and say, "Hey, Lauren, do you have anything you want to talk about?" And I say, "Yes, I do," because there's just so much information that I wish I'd had when I started my teaching career back in the early 90s. There's so much information that I wished that I'd had when my children were younger. There is so much more information about the brain. Um, a lot of our classical training in managing behavior and understanding children has been more from a behavior modification standpoint. So it's more like they do this, they get a reward. They do this, they get a punishment. And the more we've learned about brain development, the more effective we've been able to understand behavior, manage behavior, and actually teach how children can regulate their emotions. And when I say regulate their emotions, I mean how they can actually learn to calm their brain down and understand their own brains. So, lots of stuff that we will cover tonight. I know we recently did a presentation on helping the anxious child, that we did that one last month. And there's so many connections between helping the anxious child and teaching emotional regulation and so many different things that overlap in the classes. So tonight we'll talk about understanding and teaching self-regulation, meaning how children and adults we can learn to manage ourselves at home and in the classroom. And I always like to add in the classroom because I'm an elementary school counselor. I That's my heart. So I know a lot of these strategies would work not only in a classroom but also in a therapist's office or if someone works with young children. So a little bit about me. I am a school counselor at Jenks East Elementary. I work with third and fourth graders. I have been in the education system since the early 90s. So seeing what it was like when I was a teacher in 1993, when the internet was not like a big thing, and my computer that I used was more for creating worksheets and things like that. I can't imagine not having a computer today, but just seeing the differences in children and families and stresses and all those things that have changed over the years. It's amazing to me. So, uh, let's see here. And I've got someone who's got their microphone on, and so I'm just double checking who it is so we can get that one turned off. Okay, perfect. And actually, there we go. I found you. It's so easy to turn those on. I'm also been doing parent education for years and years. I teach parenting classes for Family and Children Services. I even have taught those helping children cope with divorce classes. I've taught parenting classes in the Tulsa County Jail. So I just love helping families and love helping people understand themselves as well as understand how to help kids. I'm the mother of four. And I have three sons who are in their 20s, and I have one 15-year-old daughter who is almost finished with her freshman year in high school. She's my first girl. And it's just been beautiful and challenging and wonderful and inspiring to get to be the parent to these four amazing kiddos, as well as being a wife and a counselor and all those things. So, here are my hopes for tonight. I try to pack in as much information as I can into my presentations, and I include a bunch of links so that I might not have time in 1 hour to talk about in detail everything that would be in that link. But when you get the presentation, I want you to be able to open it back up and then go click on those links and go to those resources so that you can have a better idea about, get more information, and one thing leads to another. So I want you to have those resources. So you will see tons and tons of things embedded. And then on top of that, I will also share out extra handouts and things like that. Now, when it comes to teaching emotional regulation, even though we are now in 2026 and COVID fully hit the world in 2020, all of that experience has had an impact on our kids today. So if you have a kid who is 6 years old or older and not in, and can be even younger than that, COVID had a big impact on the world. And so it really had an impact too on child development. So even if we're going to talk some about trauma tonight and its impact on the brain, that was a traumatic event for the world. That was a traumatic event for parents. There were, play dates, typically just going and hanging out at a friend's house with your 2-year-old. That was interrupted. Kids who had just started school, that was interrupted. So it did have a pretty big disruption. And so even in families where there isn't abuse or there aren't some of those challenges, that still had a significant impact on especially children learning social emotional skills, and because they didn't have a typical childhood that was interrupted. On top of the fact that we as parents, we were impacted by that. Maybe we had to work from home, or maybe we lost our job, or just the stress of having to do that and have a child, and how our dependence on screens and phones and computers and streaming, it just had a profound impact. So that is kind of an undercurrent, a layer, which is why I've thrown in some things about trauma in here. So here are some things as we get started. As young children develop socially and emotionally, they do benefit from preschool, daycare, play dates, things like that, because that helps them learn how to develop relationships, how to get along with others, and problem solve. Because COVID-19 shut everything down, a lot of children didn't get those activities. And so they've done some studies comparing children who were born before the pandemic versus those who were born after. And it's shown up in the data. There's been lower scores in language, motor skills, and thinking. So we're kind of entering this. I want you to just have that awareness as we go through this. Dr. Bruce Perry is a wonderful expert in the area of childhood brain development and all that. And he has the Child Trauma Academy. And so I've included some links to his website. I've included a link to a 20-minute video where he really explains the power and the impact of, negative life events on the brain and brain development. Because I think I always like to filter all understanding of behavior and emotional regulation, not just through what I'm seeing with my eyes, but what we know about the brain that I can't see with my eyes. But I found it interesting. Here are two brains side by side of 3-year-old children. So on the left-hand side, this larger brain, that is a typical normal brain development. This child has been in an environment that has fostered, has been healthy, has been safe, and has had good developmental interactions. Notice the same age child, a 3-year-old from extreme neglect. The brain is only about 75% the size of the normal developed brain. And so that's how trauma, that's how negative life experiences, or what Dr. Barbara Sorrells talks about, relational poverty. The world and adults and all the people around children are so, or children themselves are so distracted by devices and all those things, they're not getting those typical interactions. And it can literally impact the size of our children's brain. So I've put these links in there just simply for you to be able to reference them later. When children have that history of being maltreated or they've had trauma, they might not function at their normal age. So, right now, some of my fourth graders, they were young children, little ones when the pandemic hit, and they might not. I have noticed a huge difference in the social emotional skills of fourth graders now versus social emotional skills of fourth graders 10 years ago. Sometimes they can even act almost half their age. So in our brains, our grown-up brains who were already had our brain development happen before the pandemic hit, or, unless we had other traumatic experiences, we are surprised and we think to ourselves, well, that 9-year-old should know better. That 15-year-old should know better. Sure. But these events have had huge impact on brain development and social emotional skills. But I don't want you to worry. There's absolute hope, because you, the professional, you, the parent, you, the foster parent, you, the, teacher, or whatever role you might be filling, The things that you do, if you're purposeful, you can literally reorganize a child's brain so that it is organized. And that's what I'm hoping for tonight, that we will understand that brain development and its impact on emotional regulation, the ability to manage emotions, that you'll learn some preventive strategies, like how to even set up the environment to that helps create the opportunity for emotional regulation, as well as responsive strategies. What do I do in the heat of the moment? Okay. So back to Dr. Bruce Perry. Absolutely love the guy. I was introduced to his work when I was in graduate school, getting my master's in counseling. So I also needed that for my school counselor certification. And he has this model of development. There's a lot of different child development models. Um, there's different ones where like that says, okay, at this developmental stage, this is what they should be able to do. If you've had a child and you've taken them to a pediatrician, they have their developmental checklists. Well, what Dr. Bruce Perry, his work is all around what he calls the neurosequential model of development, meaning he's focusing on the brain development at certain stages. Brain development is based on pattern, repetition, and rhythm. That's just how these connections are made. Trauma or negative impacts like the pandemic and things like that, it can create a traumatic, chaotic environment, which doesn't have pattern, repetition, rhythm. And out of that chaotic environment or that uncertainty, that can develop a disorganized brainstem. Everything that we experience, every sound that we hear, every hug that we receive, every lesson that we learn, every book that we read, it is all processed from the bottom up. Everything starts and goes up through the brainstem. So the brainstem is the basest part of our brain. And then and that's responsible for heart rate. It creates that fight, flight, or freeze response. The midbrain is what's responsible for coordination and movement. The limbic system, that's where our emotional responses are stored. And the cortical system, that prefrontal cortex, that's where those higher skills like empathy, self-control, reading, verbally communicating, that's where all those things are stored. Now, here's the deal. If we have a child who is in their brainstem, either because something has happened that's triggered them, they are in a little chaotic brainstem, and we are expecting them to act like they are up here in their thinking brain, where I'm going to have self-control. I'm not going to have self-control if my brainstem is in freak out mode. It's not going to happen. If I have a child, the younger they are, sometimes the more disorganized that brainstem is, or the more negative experiences they've had, that brainstem can be disorganized. So if everything goes through the brainstem, I cannot get empathy and self-control unless I have this brainstem is also regulated. So all of this fits together. I cannot start from the top down. I've got to start from the bottom up. And that's where a lot of us as parents and as educators and as professionals, we miss it. We are wanting these higher level skills without actually addressing the lower level brain. So that's one thing I love about his model. And even in his model, he has a tracking system where you can kind of track, okay, if at the age of 6, this traumatic event happened, that's how it impacted brain development. And he's got a lot of different things, but we could talk for 16 days and not even get started on Dr. Bruce Perry stuff. So I did include a link to his website, but be thinking about that, because when I talk about soothing environments and putting rhythm in our environments, here's why. We are trying to organize that brainstem. Okay. All right, moving right along. Da, 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 da. All right, how does all of that relate to emotional regulation? So, and again, I'm going to sprinkle trauma throughout here, even though you might not have a child who's experienced trauma, but this also helps you understand yourself too. So trauma is any event that undermines a child's ability to feel safe physically or emotionally, or it might pose a threat to the child's parents or caregivers. So not only is it the child might be scared for themselves, but they might be scared for their parents, because children instinctively know they can't take care of themselves. Even if they can't talk yet, they know they need us. It's just an instinctual thing. They need us. They need the adults around them to be safe so that they can feel safe. Um, and even though I have a 15-year-old daughter, she needs the adults around her to be safe, so that she also has that ability to feel safe because she needs us. Like right now, she's dependent on us for food and shelter and all those things. The other thing about the brain is every emotion that we have, whether that emotion is a positive emotion, it's joy, excitement, engagement, uh, excited anticipation, love, affection, every emotion that we have, it has a corresponding neurochemical cocktail. So what that means is these neurotransmitters, and I apologize for our Spanish translators, Alberto, I apologize, lo siento. Um, I don't know how you say neurotransmitters in Spanish, so I'll let you figure that out. Or some of these big science words. So some of these neurotransmitters are dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin. You've probably heard of oxytocin, adrenaline, cortisol. These are all really powerful neurotransmitters. So every feeling that we have, positive feelings like joy and happiness and love and affection, and those negative feelings like anxiety, fear, nervousness, anger, all of those have a corresponding neurochemical cocktail. The more organized my brain is, the more effective it is at regulating those neurochemicals together. A child from poverty, they can develop what's called a sensitized stress response. So everything is scary, even something positive. Why are they freaking out? We're going to a birthday party. Well, the birthday party's not known. That's not predictable. So that's scary. Whereas for me, the grown up who isn't, hasn't been through trauma, I'm excited to go to a birthday party. A child who has had trauma or a child who has a brain that's wired differently, a neurodivergent brain, maybe an ADHD brain, or a brain that really struggles or might be on the autism spectrum, or a brain that's been through a lot. It's just wired differently. All of us, our brains have different responses to different things. So just remember that a child who is neurodivergent or maybe from poverty, that any new thing or any transition can be viewed as a threat and they have a response like it's a threat. Maybe they're angry, maybe they act out, they're dysregulated. So all of this, that's how that brain development, the brain stem, an organized brain stem, all of that works from the ground up to impact emotional regulation. Okay. Now, sometimes that's overwhelming to hear all of that. But here's the good news. You make a huge difference. So um, you hear all sorts of phrases, you can't love anybody unless you love yourself. Well, you can't take care of anyone unless you're taking care of yourself. If you are on an airplane and the airplane has an emergency and the oxygen masks drop down, they tell the adults, put the oxygen mask on yourself first and then put it on your child. Because if you pass out, the child can't handle that. They need you to do that. So it's so important for us to be aware of where am I at. That's one thing that I enjoyed so much about when I went to grad school. We were learning all of these assessments and all these different things, and we had to do them on ourselves. And I'm like, man, I'm I'm struggling with self-care. Man, I am close to compassion fatigue. I learned so much about myself in my attempt to learn to be a better counselor that it really helped me change and grow and heal. And it made me a better parent. It made me a better counselor. The immature brain, a child's brain, it needs your adult brain, an organized brain. That's you. And so children learn to regulate by being regulated. They don't learn how to manage their anger until they're put in a situation that they're angry and they have the opportunity to calm down. That's where they learn those regulation skills. They do not learn regulation skills from a consequence. Now, they might need consequences to put limits on that behavior, but that's not teaching them how to not be angry. So it's we have to have a big combination of that. So how do they learn to regulate is by, having the chance to practice regulating. When young children, especially before the age of 3, they require what's called co-regulation, where they need an adult who is regulated to help them become regulated. They can't do it on their own. Now, with what we learned and talked about just a little bit ago, that some children can act half their age. So they might be a 7-year-old and acting more like a 3.5-year-old if they have a lot of disorganized brain stem or been through some difficult life experiences. So some of our children are going to be much older that also need the presence of a regulated grown-up brain. And that's where you understanding your own brain and your own regulation really makes a difference. By the age of 3, they do have a better capacity to self-regulate. And just a reminder, timeout doesn't teach kids how to self-regulate. They might need timeout because I'm creating an opportunity for them to not hurt somebody or something like that, but they still need us to help them regulate. It's kind of like what Dr. Barbara Sorrells, I'm actually going to one of her classes tomorrow. She's located here in Tulsa. She calls it a Bluetooth connection between my brain and my child's brain. My brain's regulated, I can help them regulate. I have some great links to articles, strategies for co-regulation in toddlers. So I'll kind of click on that. Let me see if that's showing up on the screen. Did it? Yes, good. So again, I can't go through all of these details, but I'm trying to have links to very specific pieces of information that'll help you when you get the presentation emailed to you. So it's got all sorts of different tips on how to co-regulate with toddlers, tips for self-regulation skills, how things you can actually teach them to do because they need you, the presence of a healthy adult regulated brain to be able to do that. Okay. So let's see if all right. And then it has some other articles for that. Now, the way that they also learn self-regulation is they need repeated exposure to small, manageable tasks. Right now, I've got a third grader at school who is really struggling with being frustrated with his teacher. When he doesn't get what he wants or he doesn't get to do what he wants, he has a big response. And so he is really struggling with managing the big response that winds up, getting him in trouble. And so the therapist was working with him, and, he's in a preferred environment in the therapist's office. He loves the games that they get to play together. So she's not been seeing some of the behavior that he's showing in class. Or sometimes in class, he is not in an environment where he wants to be. He doesn't want to do his math or he doesn't want to do his writing. So what she started to do is she started to, while she's playing games, she will win on purpose. She will create a small dose of a frustrating interaction so that within the context of the safety of that therapist's office, he gets to practice calming down because he's frustrated. She'll tell him no for a couple of things because he's super competitive, which is great until it's not. But she's creating these repeated small manageable challenges to help him learn how to manage his frustration and his anger when he's activated. Another thing that's helpful is consistent, organized, rhythmic environment. So we're going to get into more details about what that needs. So remember, younger children, they need a co-regulated brain. Under the age of 3, they can't self-regulate. After the age of 3, they start to have the capacity to do that. So your regulation is very important. It is very important. So what do I do? Great. That's what they need. What do I do? Okay, here are some suggestions. First off, add rhythm to daily activities. We'll talk about each of these. Create soothing environments, build relationships that really creates that trust bond, and then directly teach emotional regulation skills. So we're going to look at each of these. So I kind of combined the rhythm and the soothing environments together. So now, when we say, Dr. Barbara Sorrells talks about how from conception, every cell is bathed in rhythm. So you think about a baby growing in its mama's tummy. It is consistently hearing the heartbeat, the mother's heartbeat. They've even made teddy bears, that have the recorded mom's heartbeat. Rhythm helps organize the brain. The brain is a pattern-seeking device. Now, the kind of rhythm that you use can create different kinds of patterns in the brain. So if we are having a lot of chaos, if we are having a lot of unpredictability, or if we are in an environment having a lot of loud noises, when a child is dysregulated or, fast paced, everything is going really fast, or the songs are overlapping with car traffic and those kinds of things, that's not creating rhythm. So if you have a child who's dysregulated, and the brain wants to regulate, you can teach the brain to regulate just by the rhythms you introduce while they are not regulated. So, here are some ways to do that. So, one way to introduce rhythm is language is rhythmic. So, sometimes when you are reading nursery rhymes, there was an old lady who lived in a shoe, that just the cadence, the rhythm of your speaking, that's rhythm. So, speaking soft, low, and slow on purpose actually can help bring a child down. Like the rhythm of your voice, the tone of your voice can do that. My natural speed of talking is, "Hi, I'm Lauren. How are you doing?" I talk very fast. And that's my brain is always going 100,000 miles an hour. I have ADHD and I love it most of the time. But there are definitely some frustrations to it. So if I have a child as a school counselor or my own child or even myself, where I notice there's someone who is, dysregulated, I will purposely talk soft, low, and slow. "Hi, how you doing? I can see that you are pretty frustrated right now." I've slowed down the pace of my talking. I've slowed down the tone of my voice, and I've even lowered. I'm not doing the high pitched, excitable. I'm doing those low tones. And when I learned about soft, low, and slow in grad school, and I started to notice it in other people who do that, and the people that talk soft, low, and slow kind of normally, I just feel safe around them. And they can not be a nice person, but just that cadence feels great. Also, action songs for preschool children, when they talk about, I used to do a children's play group when I did parents as teachers with my school, and we'd have a lot of songs, like you had the itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. All of those have rhythm, and those hand motions are really good for connecting the rhythms. We had our hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? Um, but songs that have hand actions can also help regulate kids. That's why often in an early childhood classroom, they'll have a lot of songs and things that they do throughout the day that create predictability. But also, if you think about it, kids learn when things are attached to music. So I know I've made up songs for my first phone number when I was teaching the boys, and this isn't my phone number anymore, but I taught them a song to learn the phone number. It was 748-5967, and that number is no longer activated. So sorry, you can't reach me. That was before you even needed an area code like you need now. So action songs, rhythm songs are great to do. And just even the songs you're listening to on the radio when a child's dysregulated. Also, a heartbeat that is at a good, healthy, calm pace is about 60 beats per minute. So you can also look up 60 beats per minute music. Um,
What's
so
that?
let
It's
me,
compounded hogwash.
Bet those weight loss meds ain't FDA approved.
Smells
okay. I am going to actually share this video. Let's see if it's showing on the screen. And I want you to just listen to the pace of the music. When I taught teachers this at school, some of them, especially at times of the day when they notice that kids tend to get amped up, like when they're coming in from recess, they'll turn the lights off when they're coming in from recess, and they will often have this music on in the background, and they have 10 minutes of just quiet time. And by just creating an environment with everything is telling the brain, time to calm down, it's okay. Slow things down can be a difference. So see, and if you Google 60 beats per minute music, so many different things will come up. They've even identified some like common pop songs that are 60 beats per minute. So I'm going to change my microphone so you can hear this. I'll play this just for get to play that for very long, or we would all fall asleep in the middle of the presentation, which is not the goal today. But 60 beats per minute music can be a helpful tool. If you notice a time of day that your children are a little bit amped up, you can even create a playlist. Even at bedtime, when we're getting our kids, trying to get them regulated and calmed down for bed, you can start dimming all of the lights, turning off all the lights that aren't necessary, turning on lamps instead of overhead lights, having music that might be playing that's slower and 60 beats per minute. All of these things are tools that's literally it's cueing, it's signaling the brain, bring it down. All right. Another way to add rhythm into the environment is with rhythm sticks. So I know they sell these things called Looney sticks. I personally, I don't like them because they make a loud noise, but they have rhythm sticks, and you can actually have kids following the beat of a song that you're doing with these little rhythm sticks. What I prefer is you can make your own rhythm sticks with pool noodles. So pool noodles are those, floatable long noodles that actually kind of look like one of these sticks, except they're, bigger. But they're soft. And so when you use them for banging, they're not as loud. It's not as harsh of a clanging noise. And so the dollar store sells the skinnier pool noodles, and you can get three rhythm sticks per pool noodle. So I've made a whole class set of pool noodle rhythm sticks where when we actually build in like um, rhythm activities, there's even videos you can watch where the kids play along with that. So whenever I send you guys the presentation, I'm going to be including some links to some of those videos. Think about having songs for transitions. Transitions are stressful on children because they're having to stop something they want to do and transition to something that maybe they want to do, maybe they don't. But it's hard to do transitions in the younger brain, especially. So you might have songs for transitions that, everyone laughs about the cleanup song. And I don't know if they have a cleanup song in Spanish, but it's the song that you might have heard. Clean up, everybody everywhere. Clean up, everybody do their share. Now I'm not singing that super fast. Clean up, everybody everywhere. I'm singing it in that predictable, slow rhythm. But for a transition, I start to hear that song and my brain starts to think, okay, time to transition now. I might sing that song 3 or 4 times. Um, so I might sing that song 3 or 4 times to kind of cue the brain of a child to do that. I have teachers that have songs for this is the way we walk in the hall, walk in the hall. I mean, they've made up songs for everything. You can make up your own songs. I made up my night night song when the boys were little. Time to go, the night night. Ooh, ooh, the night night. And I would sing that little song, and that just was a cue. It signaled the brain time to calm down. Dr. Sorrells, of course, I love her so much. She even recommends what they call movement trails. So if you've got a kiddo that needs to have rhythm and pattern in movement, you can actually even create things like hopscotch hallways, you can use like different colored tape in a hallway and make these different things where you're creating rhythm and pattern as they're walking. And that could be something that you incorporate at your school, or that could even be something that you incorporate at home. Maybe you have them copy you as you're walking up to bed, or you walk up the stairs in a certain order. But adding that rhythm and those patterns into the daily environment can be helpful. Having a rhythmic handshake. I have some teachers that they actually like have a special rhythmic handshake for every kid. And you might even allow for seating. If you've got a kid that can't sit still, what if they can sit in a wobble chair? Or what if they can sit in something like a rocking chair that allows for movement? After I went to one of Dr. Sorrell's lectures, she talked about how for children who really struggle with regulation, she would start off the day in her 3-year-old. She had a preschool for children who often got kicked out of daycare. And she had these built-in systematic activities. She wanted them to start the day that. So she literally, if she had a child that came in and they looked upset, she'd just pick them up in her lap. And she had a rocking chair, several rocking chairs in the room, and she'd read them a book, or she'd just be talking to them about anything while rocking with them. I had a kid who was in the office at school, completely trying to tear up the whole school office and everything. And I just kind of picked him up and I just started swaying back and forth like I used to do when my children were little and I had that natural kind of baby sway. And I was singing to him. He didn't want to talk. He didn't want to process talking. So I just started singing A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And he just calmed right down. I could have talked to him while he was dysregulated, would not have done anything. Dr. Shorels tells the story of how she went into a classroom. She's a consultant, and there was a kid who was incredibly challenging. And the teachers, understandably, were done. They were so done with this child, just everything he did. It was like the last thing I can handle. And he's throwing a fit and he's trying to get the teacher's attention, and they're ignoring him, and understandably so. I mean, people are humans. And so she just started moving side to side. And he's kind of looking at her. He was attracted to the movement. And then very quietly, she just started bringing her hands together like this. And he was just watching that. And then he kind of started swaying while he was watching her. Then he just went and played. Him watching her do that, she co-regulated him. She was modeling a calm, steady, rhythmic pattern, and that calmed him down. So if you have a kiddo, a child, if you have a student, if you have, sometimes building in those rhythmic activities, doing jumping jacks is a rhythmic activity, rocking, having that rocking movement. There's a lot, having those nice 60 beats per minute music in the background, that could all be great. So besides putting rhythm into the environment, how do you create soothing environments? Pay attention to the organization of space, time, and materials. Um, is the space uncluttered? You do not need to fill every single wall in the house with stuff to be, decorative. We don't live in a, 1500s English castle where every single space is filled up. If you have a child who's dysregulated, you might start taking stuff down. You might start having a very simple um, room design. That all of these things could be really helpful for you. Another thing too, besides the space, I'm going to actually click on this. I love this list. It's actually a checklist. It's for sensory means anything that's going to impact the senses. Sight, smell, sound, touch, and taste. So you don't necessarily, well, you do have taste in an early childhood classroom, but you can maybe, if you have a child who's dysregulated, what if you went around your house and with this checklist, the visual environment, what's the lighting levels like? I have teachers at school that keep their lights down, or they've actually purchased like hanging lights and not Christmas lights, but more like little globe lights, and they don't even put the overhead lights on. They keep the lights low. Clutter, I'm not an organized person, but clearing clutter makes a huge difference. Visual stimuli. Is it bright colors? Is everything moving fast? Those kinds of things. Seating arrangements. It looks at the auditory environment. What are the noise levels like? Is there clear communication? Am I talking soft, low, and slow? Do I have noise canceling options like headphones and things like that? But it has a nice detailed checklist that really looks at the environment, the sensory environment, because if you can check all these boxes and look at it, your literal environment is soothing. If I'm in a soothing environment, that might help my brain to co-regulate. You don't go to a spa if you're getting a massage or something or having a relaxation day. You don't go to the spa and they're not blaring rock music and having super bright lighting. Everything is low and calm. And so you can try to do that in your own home. What about time? The soothing time environment, predictable schedules. Visual schedules for young children can be helpful. Help with transitions. Give a specific task for those kids who struggle with transitions, meaning, all right, what do you want to finish in the next 3 minutes? Because then we're going to get in the car and go. Or you might be, hey, I need you to take this paper and go put it in the trash can. Just giving them a task can help them stop doing something. They do that task, and now they might be able to do something different. And try to minimize transitions as much as possible. I mean, if you're go, 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 that might not be helpful. If you have a dysregulated child, less is more. We are so busy with maximizing and filling our time, it can be too much of a good thing. If we have our kids signed up for every single activity, they are stressed out. So, for those kids who really struggle with it, try to minimize transitions as much as possible. What about materials? What can you access from nature? Look at your color palette. Do you have sensory tables or, things? I know they had all those shirts, the sequin shirts where you can rub the sequin one way and it makes a pattern and rub the sequin another way. They actually sell pillows like that. So I've often had pillows and things like that. My daughter for her room, she likes nice, dark, rich colors. And so she has nice, soothing, tactile things. 60 beat per minute music playing in the background could be great. There's this other method, which if you've ever gotten to tour a Reggio Emilia school, it's a whole method based out of Italy where they work in natural lighting, natural things from nature. They minimize clutter in a classroom. They try to keep a lot of stuff off the walls. That's kind of an example of a Reggio Emilia classroom. There's a school in Tulsa called Riverfield. Riverfield is a private school that follows the Reggio Emilia method. And I just walk in those classrooms and I'm like, they even put all the green markers together in a glass jar and all the blue markers. Everything is just so visually appealing. And so you might look around at that environment. If you Google Reggio Emilia method, you might see some different ideas for your environment. Another thing too is I'm not saying you have to throw stuff away, but in order to minimize distraction in the environment, what if you rotated stuff in and out of it? I had one mom, the most organized human I have ever met in my life, and she rotated her toys once a week. So she had a different bin of toys for every week of the month. So she had 4 bins. And in that bin, there would be different things, that would all fit in the bin, fit in that storage container. And then she had her staples that were always out in the room. So she had a train table for the kids. They always had that out in the room. And they had blocks. They always had that out in the room. But in this big Rubbermaid container, it was filled with other toys. And so she would rotate every Sunday. She would rotate out the bin, and it didn't have a ton of stuff, but kids are engaged with something that's new and enjoyable. So it was interesting and exciting. It was easy to clean up because it just goes right back in the bin, and then they would switch it out once a week. So I'm not telling you you have to throw away all those things that you just spent thousands of dollars on. But if you want your kid to be able to keep their room clean, they can't keep it clean if there's so much stuff. What do I do with it? So that might be a simple thing. What if you just rotate the toys? That can create a soothing environment. All right. Another step between adding rhythm to environments, creating soothing environments. Another strategy is building relationships. Children need to be seen to feel safe. There's something that Dr. Sorrells talks about called relational poverty. It does not matter if you are wealthy or if you have no idea where your next meal is going to come from or how you're going to pay rent this month. Relational poverty impacts everyone at all socioeconomic levels, and it's just distracting. I mean, these things are designed to impact your brain with a neurochemical cocktail of dopamine, and what's more interesting? Looking at a video or watching something on Netflix is a heck of a lot more interesting than talking to my 6-year-old about what they did at recess today or the 17,000 questions I mean, that's reality. We have to be purposeful about being engaged. What environment do we have in our house for that? What do you do with your phone when you get home? Are we on the phone so much that we're not even there? We're not making eye contact. She talks about how when we go to the grocery store, kids, you'll see now, and I understand, I'm not saying this out of judgment, but if we think about what this is doing to brain development and social emotional development, but you'll just see kids on their parents' phone or with an iPad everywhere in the car, when you're at the grocery store. We didn't have an iPad when my boys were younger. They're in their 20s now. I mean, they didn't even have that as an option. And to be honest, I probably would have used that just like everybody else does now. And so when we went to the grocery store, in order to keep them from throwing fits, we had conversations. Okay, who can find six yellow things on this aisle? Oh, Austin, can you find the banana? Hey, I need three bananas. Will you get those for me? I would even send them out to go, give them their little list of things that they could get. That became an interaction time. We've completely removed that, and now they are literally interacting with the screen all the time because I just need to get the groceries done. It's just so convenient. So that relational poverty can really get in the way if we're not purposeful. It's not just teenagers and kids who are on screens all the time; it's grown-ups too. Look for things about your child that you can celebrate every day. What if you had the habit of saying things like, one thing I like about you is, and have that be a daily ritual? I had a mom who came to one of my step parenting classes, and she just had this ritual every day, anytime they got in the car. Before she would start the car, her little ritual was, one thing I like about you is, and she would say that she had two sons. When she remarried, and her new husband had a 5-year-old son who they had a traumatic divorce, high conflict divorce. He'd been in therapy for years and he was only 5 or 6 years old. The dad said that 2 months of being with his stepmom, where she just did that thing every day, one thing I like about you is, did more for him than several years of therapy because he felt seen, he felt safe. Um, we did a class with Oklahoma Family Network, and I've included the link to the YouTube video called The Five Love Languages of Children. Great ideas and strategies about you can show your children love and attention in specific ways. Try to have positive contact in your family so that everything isn't just problem talk, that the only time we're not talking to our kids is when we're correcting them and things like that. Simple things like just getting down on their level, crouching down, sitting down next to them. And if you really have a child from trauma or a lot of chaos, TBRI is the next big thing that I want to get some training in. I've just barely scratched the surface of understanding what it is, but it's a whole method based on trust-based relational interventions. And so I've included a link to some resources about that. That could be a good tool for you. But sadly, we don't have time for me to show the whole video, but this particular news report, I'm going to pull it up just for a second.
Think safety. Think Granger. For trusted products to lock, anchor, contain.
So this was an actual Good Morning America thing where it was showing a parent that was on their screen and how distressed the child became. So I'm just going to show a little excerpt of that. But they were doing some like a research on how long it took a child to become upset and the things that they would do to try to get the attention of a parent who was just on their screen. So let me change the microphone real fast.
Melissa to look up from that screen.
We have some other things we do, Mommy. We have some other things to do, Mommy.
And he just walks away. Yeah.
This mom is helping researchers replicate a study for us. She's doing something very difficult for her. Asked to keep looking down. And remember, just for 2 minutes.
Come on, Mommy.
He repeats the plea 7 times.
We have another thing to do, Mommy. Mommy! You gonna not listen to me, Mommy. Listen to me, Mommy.
And here is another fact about grown-ups and phones.
I could watch that one forever. They actually even have, they did that same study, and I think it's also on that video with babies. Parents who aren't looking at the baby starts crying. I mean, like they don't feel safe when the grown-up that they instinctually know, hey, I can't survive without this grown-up, and they're not even paying attention to me. I mean, that's how important it is for them to be able to feel seen and heard. So um, definitely work on building those relationships. We can't fix stuff overnight. It's okay. I mean, we're addicted to these things too. So I don't know of anyone who the addiction is just like, oh, I'm just deciding not to use it one day. It would be really, it'll be tough. But realize the purpose of that. I want my child to be able to co-regulate with me, to feel safe with me, to feel seen with me. So I want to do that. I'm going to watch our screen use. And that means even them not having as much screen use. All right. Now, the final thing, which of course isn't all the things, but we have adding rhythm, creating soothing environments, building relationship. And that way, even when you have to correct a child, they still feel safe with you. They're more correctable. Directly teach emotional regulation skills. Children do not learn how to be emotionally regulated, meaning how to calm down and how to manage their emotions just with consequences. Like if you do this, this is going to happen. We need consequences, but we also need to teach the skills that they need to not have the consequences. So I'm not saying get rid of consequences, but a lot of us, we just look at the consequence to do the teaching. Getting in trouble for being angry is not going to teach you how to calm down when you're angry. Teach those skills. I used to teach anger management classes in my counseling internship, and then I did a couple of years as a therapist on the side. And my favorite group to teach was anger management. I had people come in there because the court said they had to, and we just like learned. We learned to pick up on our cues. They weren't even aware of when they were starting to get angry. They never really thought about their triggers. They never made a calm down plan. Directly teach emotional regulation skills. Now, how do we learn as humans? It's just, do you get it because you told me to? Nope. We need modeling. That means we need someone to show us what regulation looks like. That's the adult. Guided practice where we're going alongside them. If I'm teaching a child to fold a towel, I don't just say, you fold the towel like this and never do it again. I show them how to fold the towel. I'm right with them next to them folding the towel, and maybe we're folding towels together for a week. And then they start folding the towels themselves. But we need lots and lots of repetition, just like when we're teaching a kid to ride a bike, just like when we're teaching a kid their ABCs or different vocabulary words. We need lots and lots of repetition. But think about it. Do we do any of this when it comes to teaching kids how to manage their emotions? Most of us don't. That's why I have a job as a school counselor. Now, under the age of 3, remember, they require co-regulation. But here's some very specific foundation things kids need to know how to do. Number one, I can name my feelings. I'm going to give you some tools for what that might look like. We say, use your words. Do they know the words? I don't know. So they have to be able to name their feelings. So I've got some mood meters I'm going to show you, feelings charts, feeling sticker magnets, and all that. You need to know feelings can change. So you could start angry and be calm. You can start happy and become sad. And you can start sad and become happy or calm. Stories can change. So songs about changing feelings and what do we do to change our feelings? I'll have some links that show you what to do there. Another thing they need to know, I can have more than one feeling about something at the same time, which goes right along with my feelings about something might be different than someone else's feelings about something. Another one, I can manage my strong emotions. I love working with third and fourth graders because they listen to what I say. It's like Miss Alvarez said. The parent could have told them that 15 times, but Miss Alvarez said, I teach deep breathing techniques. I teach them. Your sympathetic nervous system is the reactive part, and here's what's happening. Your heart's beating fast, you take fast, shallow breaths, all the blood is flowing to your arms and legs to help you fight or run away. Your amygdala, your brainstem is activated. And then I teach them your parasympathetic nervous system is your calm down response. Your breathing is slow. Your heartbeat slows down. Well, I teach them you can trick your brain. If you on purpose start taking deep breaths, you're literally tricking your brain, your parasympathetic nervous system. Oh, I'm breathing slow. I'm going to line up everything else. My heartbeat's going to slow down. My blood flow is going to go to the whole body. You can trick your body into calming down. I teach them how to do that. And I have some links to some great posters and things that I use. Have a marker system where different colors represent different levels of what they need when they go to another room. Another thing they need to know, I can manage frustration. Like I can manage not always getting what I want. How do they learn that? Small, manageable, challenging tasks, which means do not give them what they want all the time. They will not learn how to manage frustration unless we allow them to be frustrated. And another one, there are people who can help me manage my emotions. Me, the adult, the parent, the teacher, the professional, I want to be that person for that kid. I want to be that safe space for them because they need us for that. All right, let's go into a little more detail. It mentioned I can name my feelings. You might not have ever heard of these things. These are called mood meters. Or there's another whole incredible curriculum called zones of regulation. Blue is kind of like the sad zone. I might be sad, tired, bored. The green zone might be happy, calm, good to go, focused, ready to learn. The yellow zone can actually be both sides of it's where things are moving fast. I mean, they're kind of anxious, or I'm like super excited, like it's too much. It can be hyper and all that. And the red zone is I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm feeling out of control. Kids might not be able to verbalize, I am feeling jealous right now, but they might be able to point to one of these zones. Man, I'm kind of in the red zone right now. I even have some teachers and I even have some parents who they have a mood meter up in their house. And when they, down in the kitchen and when the kids come down for breakfast, they kind of point to where they're at. And that just helps you without even saying words, point to where they're at. I'm going to, dun, da, da, da. Okay, I did this. Now, hold on. I'm going to escape out of this real fast. And I want to show you these feeling stickers. Nope, that's not what I want. Hold on. I pulled up some things. Okay. I actually have these feelings magnets on I have a dry erase board in my classroom that's magnetized. And so when I have kids walk in for a group, they'll come and pick the magnet that represents their feeling. And they'll put it, oh, this is what I feel like today. And then that can just sometimes start a conversation. But I'm teaching them what are their feelings. They have children's books that are all about your different feelings. So use those kinds of things to help you with that. And I even included a link with all sorts of posters and activities that help them identify their feelings. And always the message is feelings are okay. So anger is not bad. It's what you do while you're feeling that feeling that can become helpful or not helpful. But it is normal to feel angry. It is normal to feel sad. It is normal to feel worried. It is normal to feel excited. Those are all normal feelings. There are not good and bad feelings. There are just behaviors attached to those feelings that are helpful or not helpful. And so I've included a whole link to like tons of things that I've gathered over the years that you'll get. Now, you might actually um, use phrases like this if you're using a mood meter. Hey, is there something you can do for yourself to move from angry to calm? Hey, what can I do to help you move from sad to happy? What do you need from me to help you move from angry to calm? Hey, feelings are okay. Watch what you do and say. Hey, I can't help you unless I know how things are going. Help me help you. How are you feeling? So, mood meters, those kinds of things, teaching kids to identify their feelings. I've also included, because I'm a nerd, tons and tons and tons of links to videos, to I have a whole list of social emotional books for teaching feelings, Julia cookbooks, the Little Spot series. The Little Spot series is these books that are all about feelings, and there's even little stuffed animals that go with them. The second step curriculum is something we use at school that could be helpful. There's even Sesame Street videos that I've included here. Elmo, name that emotion. How to identify feelings. This whole idea of I'm frustrated, I'm going to take a break and try again. Daniel Tiger is like the Mr. Rogers neighborhood. I grew up watching that. But nowadays, kids have the animated Daniel Tiger. He's got a whole bunch of songs, like I take a deep breath and blow it out. These are all ways that help children identify their feelings. I even teach children to pay attention to what they're feeling in their body. Hey, how do you know when you're angry? Where do you feel it in your body? Because if they start to tune into that, they can start to realize, oh, my neck is, tensed up. I think I'm angry. So all of these things are tools to help them do that. Also, I have a whole bunch of links to skills that you can teach them from an early age. I've got a link to a bunch of breathing posters. I use these a whole bunch, and it has lots of different things like box breathing. It has a little pictures for it as well as instructions. Triangle breathing. I'm going to take a deep breath, hold it for three, breathe out. So it has links to all sorts of different types of breathing. And really, it's not the type of breathing that makes it perfect. It's the fact that they are following a pattern and they're having to use their thinking brain to know what pattern to do while they're doing the deep breaths. I've got some links to some videos for you, like rainbow breathing, where we teach a kid to make a rainbow, where they breathe in and breathe out. These are all things you can do with younger children. And teenagers can use that stuff too. Let them have a do-over if they lose emotional control. I have bad days. Why do I expect my kids to be perfect? And just say, hey, let's have a do-over. Why don't you say that again? Hey, we're having a rough time. Let's have a do-over. Why don't we try that again? But here's the big deal. There also has to be accountability. If while they are dysregulated, they have destroyed property or hurt a person's feelings, it's very important to do that emotional repair. If a child throws a bunch of stuff when they're angry, after they're calm, it's very important to have them pick that stuff up. And you might even help them pick that stuff up. Now, if I'm yelling at them to pick that stuff up, then I've just reactivated them. But they need to do that relationship repair. And I've also included some links to monster meditations. There are, which is Sesame Street videos of the little monsters doing different things throughout the day, a specific breathing technique skill. You can teach those skills. They do not automatically know how to do those things. We are grown-ups and we don't automatically know how to do those things. All right. So those are some things, and you might even consider having a calm corner in your home or in a classroom or in your professional space. And this is just a corner that kind of is well aware of reducing sensory input. I had one kid transform his closet into, they put Christmas lights up in the closet, a bunch of different pillows in there and books. And when he would get upset, he would go into the closet, turn off the light, except for the Christmas lights, be on these comfortable things and read a book. And that was like his safe place to kind of go and block out the world. And I've got a bunch of posters and mood meters and activities, a link to that you will get when we email that. All right. So I know I always cover way too much and I never have enough time. So I'm going to do a quick summary. Here are some ideas. How can I help children self-regulate besides adding rhythm, soothing environments, building that relationship, and directly teaching social emotional skills? Here might be some starting points. Build a calm corner in your classroom or home so they can have a safe, quiet place to go to when they are feeling dysregulated. You know what my calm corner in my home was when I had young children? The bathroom. It's just like go in there, turn off the lights, and they can't get to me because they think mommy's going to the bathroom. No, mommy was taking a time out. I had simple sensory items by age, or have, kids can check things out for you, have a calm down bucket or something like that. Take a look at your classroom or home. What do you need to take down? What do you need to remove? Look at that sensory checklist and what could I get rid of? And you can't do it overnight, but I had one mom, and I've seen those things, 40 bags in 40 days. What if for the next 40 days you went through each room in the house and the goal is just what can I get rid of? Fill up 40 bags in 40 days. I can't do it all at once, but hey, I could spend 15 minutes a day and get rid of stuff. I mean, that might work. Look at the links that I provided. I've included some links to Dr. Barbara Sorrells and Dr. Bruce Perry videos that might be helpful. What if you teach one calming activity a week and then practice it every single day? So this week we're going to learn box breathing and every single day practice it. That would be that modeling, guided practice, independent practice, repetition, repetition, repetition. Could be a song, could be something. Considering making a movement station in your, classroom, in a hallway, and that way they can just build in movement. Maybe it's a hopscotch or something like that, or create some sort of movement pattern on the way to bed or when we get home from school. adjust your expectations and realize that, the pandemic did have an impact on social emotional development, and some of our older children are still kind of experiencing those repercussions. We have to do some reteaching. The biggest deal is take care of yourself so that you can take care of the people that are dependent on you. So I've got a link to a bunch of different articles here. And then also remember, I've got my email there. And also remember, we have a couple of events coming up in April. So we're going to do another one in April and another class in May. Would really love to see you at. Now, I know I always seem to go over by 7 or 8 minutes, and Erin just loves me anyway. So I appreciate your forgiveness at that. But that is all I have for today, simply because we're out of time. Know that you're going to get a presentation will be emailed to you. Any extra links or videos that might be helpful for you, I will also send those. And then feel free to go and look at the Oklahoma Family Network YouTube page, because they have a bunch of other classes from all sorts of experts and different things that they might suggest for you. You could just listen to that while you're driving. All right, anything you want to add, Erin?
Well, first of all, I just have to say that I told you guys you were in for a treat. And how I always can say people are engaged is that everybody stayed on till the end. So I will have to say that that says a lot about what you're sharing. And if you can see in the chat, Lauren, everybody's saying what a great job you did and what a great presentation. Like I told you, I love that it's this, you can use this for all ages. And that's what I think is so great, is even some of these things you can use with older kids as well. So thank you all for participating. Again, we will send the presentation along with the handouts and our upcoming next presentation with Lauren. She does this monthly, and I hope everyone has a great evening. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks. Good to see you, Erin. Hope your foot heals quickly.
Hey, thank you. Bye, guys.